Hi, and you're very welcome to the LGFA Talk Show here today. I'm Michelle Ryan and I'm your host. Later we'll be joined by 2010 Dublin winning captain Denise Masterson. But to chat with me here today I have Rachael MacKenzie, who is a world champion in Thai boxing, and also I have Lyndsey Davey, current Dublin ladies football player. And Rachael is here in Dublin working with both past and present ladies football stars on a new elite programme, and we're just going to have a few minutes chat with her about it. So welcome, Rachael.
Hello, nice to be here.
As I mentioned there, you're here in Dublin launching a new programme, Serious Support Programme. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
I think it's a really exciting programme. So the programme's a partnership between the LGFA and Lidl as part of Lidl's support for the women's game over here. And what we're doing is using the elite players to go and inspire the girls that are perhaps girls who are involved in sport but are at risk of dropping out. What we know is that by the time girls reach sort of their mid to late teens, at least a half of girls stop playing sport. And we're hoping that our players can inspire those girls to keep playing, but also to make some positive choices in their lifestyle and really set goals and aspirations in the way that the players have in really being their best.
Fantastic. And I suppose what would be your background in sport and getting involved in this programme?
So I work for a charity based in the UK called the Youth Sport Trust that uses elite athletes to go into schools and deliver programmes similar to the programme that we're delivering over here. I've been working for the organisation for about 10 years. I come from the sport of Thai boxing, so I'm a world champion in Thai boxing. And then following an injury, swapped to regular Olympic style boxing, and have been really fortunate that I've been able to represent England in boxing and hold the British title for boxing as well.
That's pretty incredible, to be honest. And I suppose Thai boxing is a unique sport, high level, high competitive. How did you get involved in such a sport?
I didn't start Thai boxing till I was 18, and I was probably one of the girls that we're looking to work with in this programme, really. So by the time I was 16, I'd really disengaged from sport and hadn't found anything that I had a passion for. I hadn't found anything that really felt like it built me up. And when I was 18, I went to university actually and happened to live opposite a Thai boxing club, and a friend that I shared a house with persuaded me to go and have a look at the club. And unfortunately, the coach who ran that club didn't think that girls should do Thai boxing. So I ended up fighting really as a way of proving him wrong. And I think for the girls that we're going to work with and the stories that the athletes have got, lots of their stories are about overcoming that sort of perception of women in sport. So our use of these female athletes, we hope, will inspire the girls to find a sport that they love, whether it's Gaelic football or another sport. We hope that them hearing the stories and seeing the girls in real life, girls that are just like them, will show them that sport really is for anybody, and all the benefits of sport, as we know, aren't just physical, they're about friendship and that emotional resilience.
Fantastic. And I suppose, as you said, you would have encountered a bit of maybe prejudice and struggles and difficulties when you were starting out in your sport. Were there many female role models available to you, or would you have to have borrowed those from other sports? Yeah,
so really similar, I think, to what we're hoping to do with the girls on this programme. You know, females that are doing well and are fighting and challenging themselves. When I see those in any sport, and I look at the girls, I've been fortunate enough to spend time with these girls, and I see their competitiveness and I see their work ethic. And even now, today, I'm inspired. I'm going to go home and try some Gaelic football because I'm so inspired by the girls that I see. And when I was starting out in my sport, the only female role models I had were, you know, the handful of Olympic athletes that appeared every 4 years. And there were no other women in sport. And that's why I think this programme is so important, and the support of Lidl and the networks in putting the Gaelic football game out for the young girls to see that women, girls just like them, can do the same sports and be as physical, get as muddy and enjoy it just in the same way that the boys do.
Fantastic. And I suppose you've worked with many elite athletes, and beside you have one of our own elite athletes in ladies football, and maybe just to bring in Lyndsey there. So Lyndsey, how did you get involved in this programme?
So Carla Rowan on our team would have been involved in the pilot programme last year, and I suppose for me, kind of just hearing her feedback and how she got on, and she really enjoyed being a part of it. So I think when they advertised this year that they're looking for more athlete mentors, Joey said I just put my name forward, and more for me I suppose just to challenge myself, because I suppose there a lot of it is building, going into schools and building on public speaking and telling your story. So for that element it was a challenge for myself. To be able to push myself to do that, and then I suppose just to give back something to the sport as well, because I suppose football has been a massive part of my life. I've been playing with the seniors since I was 14, and like we said earlier today, like half my life has been spent playing football for Dublin. So for me, I suppose to tell other kids my story and try and encourage them to stay in sport and to give something back was the main reasons I wanted to get involved.
Great. And I suppose, what kind of structure have you had to the programme so far, and how is it planned moving forward?
So the programme that we've been sort of going through over the last couple of days here at Marino involves the girls using some of the values that we develop as athletes, but that are also linked to the values that Lidl hold as a company and the LGFA hold within their organisation. So we're thinking about things like, how do we develop trust within our sporting team, but also how does that translate into how I build a really strong support network around me that means that I can achieve not just in the sporting arena, but also in my studies, or how can I build a team that will support me if I'm going through a difficult time. And we're thinking about, the values of responsibility and respect and recognition, and really trying to encourage the girls to think about how those lessons from sport impact on every aspect of their life. So how do I take responsibility for myself day to day so that I can really go out and be my best?
And you have, as we've mentioned, you've experience dealing with elite athletes. How does that compare to dealing with, we'll say, elite athletes here in Ireland and their experience of ladies football?
Well, the girls are absolutely amazing. Every single one of the girls that we've got on our programme have got fantastic stories, but they're also all really natural in the way that they deliver their stories and the way that they interact with the young people. And I think that in itself is really powerful, because the girls don't just play sport. Sport is part of the person that they are. They all hold regular jobs. Actually, that adds a different element to being an elite athlete, to an athlete that's on a full-time programme and doesn't have to balance and juggle. Some of the things that the girls that we work with will also be juggling. So they're having to manage their time in the same way that young girls will have to manage their time if they're working towards exams and then going to play football. And, and our players are able to reference how sport helps them to deal with those stresses and those challenges of everyday life, how going out and playing a game of football actually means that if I've had a bad day at work or a bad day at school, I feel a little bit happier. And I think that's the really unique thing about this programme.
And Lyndsey, I suppose your experience of starting out, as you said, playing ladies football and getting to the level that you're at, sport is obviously huge in your life. And if you were to give advice to younger players who are starting out, maybe just looking at matches on telly or looking at these programs, what advice would you give them?
I suppose what we're trying to do is kind of to get kids to, number one, stick with it, because for me sport has been a massive part of my life, even in terms of my career. Like the skills and qualities I've learned from sport, like teamwork, leadership, communication skills, are all the kind of qualities that helped me get my job as a firefighter. And I think it's funny for me because sport was massive in helping me get my job. And now, even we're learning today, like it's also, if we've had a tough day in work, it also helps me get away from my job as well. And I think and as well, just the friendships. That's one of the massive things I've taken away from sport as well over the years, is the amount of friends I've made from it, and lifelong friends as well. You might not see them from one end of the year to the other, but when you do see them, it's like you're never apart from each other. And even the memories that you make as well over the years. So going out and enjoying it and just having fun with your friends, I think that's the biggest part of it. And I think that's the advice, is to just stick with it, because when you do look back, you just realise what you actually achieved from it and what impact that it was in your life. And I know for me, my life probably wouldn't be the way it is now only because of football.
And you can hear more about the series support programme from September. I'm joined here now by former Dublin captain Denise Masterson, All-Ireland captain for 2010, and again by Lyndsey Davey, current Dublin player. I thought it was finished being surrounded by Dublin players last Saturday, but here we are. So look, we're just going to have a little bit of a chit chat about football in general and we might start off maybe with, I suppose, the breakthrough you made in 2010 with your first All-Ireland, both of you being involved at that time. So, Denise, if you want to take us through, I suppose, getting to that stage and the occasion that it was for you.
Yeah, I suppose we'd had a lot of heartbreak in the years leading up to it, and a lot of transition is the word that we used. There was a few people, believe it or not, Lyndsey still going, would have been one of the more experienced players on the panel back then, so that just shows how long Lyndsey's playing football. I suppose there was a core group and we kept building around it, and 2010 was a very special year for us all, I suppose, being the first time that Dublin won. A lot of that group, well, not a lot of that group, but there's still some of that group still going strong, and I do think it probably set the foundation for how things were to change, but a lot of work had gone on prior to 2010. I suppose there were a couple of key people involved that year that drove it on, whether it be managers, coaches, or I suppose Martin Kennedy was huge that year in terms of giving us a little extra edge. Michael Ryan, yes, your father, Michelle. But there would have been a few people like that really probably gave a different edge to it that year. Just drove it on, exactly.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that was a couple of years in the making. It wasn't just that year. We lost to Cork in 2009, and the year previous, I think we were out in the quarterfinals. So we did have a couple of previous heartbreaks to that, and then definitely in the 2009 final, I kind of set the motion for us in terms of losing finals to Cork. And the year after, I think we just came back stronger than ever. And I suppose the likes of, with Martin and Michael involved, they just kind of pushed it on that bit more. And I suppose we were just probably hungrier than ever to get across the line. But I suppose on the day, it's just an unbelievable performance from everybody. Everyone just really upped their game, and it was a very memorable game. In terms of when you look back at it, it was a really enjoyable game, and to finally get over the line when that final whistle went, it was amazing. Yeah.
And actually, I actually remember that game because we would have been playing in the intermediate All-Ireland before you against Donegal, and I remember coming out. I think it was midway through the first half, nearing half time, and you were winning pretty convincingly at the time. I mean,
that meant nothing to us, Michelle, because we'd been there the year before with Cork, and I think there was only maybe, I'd say, possibly less than 10 minutes, and I was overtaking a sideline ball. Kathleen Clareevy was on the sideline, and she said, "Denise, I think we have." I said, "Kathleen." I said, no, I think we could have been 12 points up at that stage, but after what happened to us against Cork, I'd say it was maybe 2 minutes to go, and I thought, I don't think they're going to come back now. But yeah, even though we were really far ahead, I think we were just so focused, we weren't taking the foot off the pedal at all, But talking about the defeats in the quarterfinal, one particular moment that stood out for me in terms of when things changed, we were absolutely hockeyed by Tyrone in a quarterfinal, and we went into the changing room, and I remember the county chairperson at the time, really nice man. He came in to talk to us after the game, and I don't think he knew what hit him, because like how focused, Macker Senior was. Like, she straight away lit in on him that we needed to be doing weights, and I think the man didn't know what was going on. Like, I mean, we'd just been hammered, we were out for the season, and like Macker wanted to know when we were starting our gym program, where it was, and I suppose it was people like Macker as well. Like that was the day we had just been beaten, our season was over, and she just wanted us in the gym the next day starting, and probably, I think even the chairperson at the time probably took that on board, and I think he probably, I think in fairness to her rant that day probably did kickstart a lot, and I think people understood that we just weren't happy with where we were.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what year that was, but that for me would have been the start of the change in terms of the approach.
And I suppose, Denise, would 2010 have been your highlight?
The year would have been the highlight.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, if I'm to think of memories of my whole football career, it might not necessarily, obviously winning an All-Ireland is amazing, but just that year in general, we had some fantastic training sessions, great fun, like it was very competitive, and again, just my midfield partner, like we'd go in for a throw-in in a challenge game, I'd come down and my hair would no longer be in a bobbin, and that was just from the throw-in, it was, we really went at each other, but we had some, and just great fun. It just that season, I suppose, all of that season, it was just a thoroughly enjoyable year for us. You know, we had a great group. We'd been together a long time. We were old by today's standards. We were an old team. Most of us were old. Lyndsey lived in Tiernan Oak. She was 20 for about 10 years. But there were a lot of us well in our 30s, you know, and I don't know, there was a lovely blend, and it was just a really, really good year. And I couldn't necessarily say that All-Ireland final day, I probably missed some of it, you know, because you're just so focused on that. But the year leading up to it, the whole summer of training that year for me would have been very special.
And 2010, no doubt, then created a platform then for Dublin to move on. They'd won the first senior All-Ireland, and moving on then in the coming years. Lyndsey, take us through that.
You would have thought I would have drove things on, but actually didn't, because there was a couple of years we went through transition again. There was like a mass exodus of that kind of more experienced group of players, and it took another couple of years to kind of find our feet again. And I don't think it was really until Greg McGonigal came back in that he put a structure back in place. And one of the things he did early on was securing DCU as our base and getting us in with a strength and conditioning coach. And only then did we kind of start building again. And unfortunately with Greg, I suppose we're just missing that something where we went on to lose 3 All-Irelands in a row. But I think the one thing that was similar to the 2010 was we built this core group of players that kind of stuck together. And I know, especially after the 3 defeats to Cork, there was a lot of us teetering on the edge of dropping off. Like, you know, after 3 defeats, and you kind of, it's like the definition of madness, isn't it? Doing the same thing over and over again and not getting any different result. And you're like, how is this happening? What are we doing wrong? And I suppose Greg made the decision then to step away. And for me, it was going to be a case of whoever took the job was when I'd make my decision then. And then when I found out Mick Bowen was taking over the team, I was like straight away, I'll be back. Because I know what he had done kind of with the Dublin in the years previous. I got Dublin to their kind of first All-Ireland final back in 2003. And I just know the impact that he had on the girls, when the girls talking about him. And I was just kind of really excited to get involved. And as well, I'd seen what he'd done over the previous years then with other teams that I'd been involved. A lot of them always seemed to be very successful. So I was really excited to I got that buzz back again, because I think I was starting to lose that under Greg, because I suppose we're doing the same thing 3 years in a row and nothing changed. And I was just so disheartened, I think, that we still just weren't able to crack it. And then when Mick came in, I don't know, he just brought a new sense of energy with him. I think he spoke to a lot of players and who were on the edge as well, and got them back. And I think we all committed to go for it again. And those past 2 years have just been unbelievable under him. And obviously he's in his 3rd season now, and he still just keeps everything so fresh, and it's just really exciting, and it's just back being enjoyable football. And then we're pushing each other as well, and I suppose you're trying to achieve a common goal. And as well, it's just the memories that I think that we're making with each other. You know, if we're on team camps or on team holidays, it's just amazing to kind of be a part of it. And I suppose for me, one of the probably most special moments as well is like the 17 and 18 finals, just the attendance that have been on them. Like, I suppose being on an All-Ireland final last year and have over 50,000 people there to watch it, and you're walking around that stadium, it's just electric. And just the sense of pride that you get because you're representing your county. And everyone's cheering you. And I remember I said to you in 2017, I was like, I just didn't even look at the crowd. I was so focused. And you're like, no, you need to enjoy those moments. So in 2018, I kind of really took it all in. And it was just, I think for me, it's really exciting to still be a part of it now, because I've seen the changes of where we started and where we've come. And I think it's really exciting to kind of still be a part of it now. And I think what's even more exciting is to see where we can get to. Like next year's All-Ireland, what attendance can we get? And I suppose what's massive now is the semi-finals now being in Croke Park.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of attendance is going to turn out for them, like regardless of who's in it. So I think the changes that are happening are just really exciting.
And am I right in saying you joined the panel in 2004?
Yeah.
So yeah, like a lot of us around a long time, but you've obviously seen huge changes then, would say, within not just the Dublin camp, just in ladies football in general.
Yeah, definitely. Like I first joined the team in kind of 2004. I was actually 14. I was 15 kind of come my first All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
And definitely the change, like even in strength and conditioning alone. I suppose even in the coverage that the game's getting now, even with the 20x20, there's a lot of effort being put in to advertise the game. With kind of Lidl coming on board, you're seeing female footballers on billboards all around the town, and you know, it's brilliant. And I think as well, it's just, yeah, I just the media and stuff is, I think, a massive part of it. And then obviously the crowds, the crowds that are coming out to support us now. And even with Dublin getting more games in Croke Park and the likes of the league, it's just, yeah, it's been phenomenal, the changes that have happened over the past number of years.
And I suppose to both of you, I mean, when you get to a certain stage in your career, maybe it gets a little bit more difficult to make that decision to come back. I suppose mentally it's a tough decision. Physically, you're kind of wondering whether you can do it. Would either of you have kind of had that experience over your years of playing?
Well, I suppose unlike Lyndsey being 14 and 15 starting All-Ireland finals, I hadn't started playing football till I was 23. So my situation would be the complete opposite of Lyndsey. Like, I started so late that I suppose time wasn't on my side necessarily, whereas as Lyndsey seems to have all the time in the world. She's still going strong. And it's funny because in 2004, you know, I would have joined the panel around then as well, but like an abiding memory of mine was in a match, I remember John O'Leary, the manager at the time, using Lyndsey as the example, you know, saying if you could all just take a leaf out, like just play with that carefree abandon. And, you know, Lyndsey still manages to do it today, but she was so young, but that was how he was trying to get people just to relax and play football. It was to play like Lyndsey Davey, you know. So, but in terms of longevity, like I said, when you start playing at 23, you're kind of, but I never played, I never knew anything about the sport. And when I got involved at 23, I was just, I suppose, completely hooked. And I was so lucky. I suppose luck played a huge part in me progressing quickly onto the senior team. And, you know, I suppose I was lucky in terms of injury as well. So I managed to keep going till I was 34 or 35. But
it gets harder as the
years
years
still
go on,
shorter
doesn't it?
than Lyndsey's, and she's only 30, you know. So yeah, but for me, so when all of these initiatives about getting young girls involved, like, God, if I hadn't been exposed, I don't know how I missed it, but if I'd have been exposed to Gaelic football from a younger age, like, I can't imagine, you know. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change any of my playing days, but for young girls, that the opportunity is there to get out and play from a young age, and to have all the opportunities, and what an organisation to be involved in, you know. I mean, I was lucky that I found it at 23, but like I said, so when you're asking questions about when or not to decide to leave, my body told me, my life told me, you know, Denise, get going, because it was that stage, you know. Whereas I suppose it's tougher for Lyndsey when you're 21 and winning an All-Ireland in 2010.
I suppose as well, you want to be as successful as you can while you can. And I suppose with the defeats that we had, and when Mick coming on board, I suppose to have the chance to kind of just go again. And I think when Mick first came in, I said, God, I'd just love to win kind of a 10th Leinster. I kind of wasn't really even thinking of the All-Ireland at that stage. I just kind of was like, geez, 10 Leinsters would be a fantastic achievement. And then as the year went on, we were playing really well. We just gelled really well as a unit. And I think the management gelled really well with the team in terms of the new concepts that he brought on board. And he was just brilliant in how he drove everything on. And to be back then in the All-Ireland final in 2017 and to have such a fantastic performance, and we finished really strong against Mayo and to win, like, I definitely wasn't expecting that. And then to do it again the year after, and it's obviously 18 was probably even more special because we were playing Cork, and having never beaten them in an All-Ireland final, to have done it then, you know, I think for me, I'm delighted that I did stay on and give it another year, because I was like, I would have missed out on that. And then, because you seem, I know with me anyway, I seem to always say one more year, and I've been saying that for I don't know how many years. And even this year again, I was kind of in my mind going, like, just, I suppose when you get injured and stuff, injuries do take a lot longer. I've definitely struggled this year with certain aspects. And I suppose for me as well is the injuries I pick up, like, I'm a firefighter, and I need my body as well for my career, because at the end of the day, when I finish playing football, I still have to continue on with my role for, like, hopefully the next 30 years. So you have to kind of be mindful of life outside of football, but at the moment when you're in it, you just want to keep being as successful as you can while you can. And for me, I suppose I'm still enjoying it, and while I'm still enjoying it, I'm going to try and keep going.
Yeah, and just to pick up on the firefighter there, because I know both myself and Denise are teachers, and that's kind of a profession that lends itself very well to, to training and preparation for matches, just we'll say with regards to time management. So how have you managed that over the years, like playing at such a high level and obviously in a high pressure profession as well?
I think it's something that kind of definitely comes with experience. My first year in, I don't think I played really well with Dublin. I think that was Greg's last year, and I was just so tired the whole time because I wasn't sure how to kind of adapt my roster to fit my training schedule. So I'd be coming off nights and I'd be going straight to training or a match, or you'd be working all day and going training, and it was just trying to get the idea of the rest and recovery in. I was finding it really difficult, and I think it definitely impacted my performance. But Paul Clark, who is on my crew as well, he was brilliant in helping me kind of come to terms going, if you swap this shift here and you did this there. So it's just manipulating my roster to suit my schedule, I suppose, to suit football. And just, I suppose, the support that I've gotten from my crews, I wouldn't be able to play football if it wasn't for the support of everyone in the station, because they'd be covering me off for shifts and like, I'll work that for you, and then just pay me back whenever. So I think that's been a massive part of it. And like I said, you learn how to kind of recover better. If I was coming up to a big game, I'll make sure I clear a couple of days where I'm not going to have to work a night shift and go straight to training, because it's just trying to maximise your recovery when you can. But I suppose for me as well, football has helped me get into that job, because in terms of the qualities that I've picked up through sport, like we were saying earlier, like leadership, communication, and it is definitely something though that I'm in a very lucky position that I'm doing my dream job and still being able to play and make them both work. So I wouldn't change a thing in the world. I'm loving being able to do both. But like I said, I think it just came with a bit of experience and learning how to work things better.
Great. So
I'm sorry, Michelle, but your long career as well, you're still going strong.
Yeah. I suppose, look, I'm in my 19th season now. As I've mentioned before, look, I was very, very young joining the Waterford panel. It was a case of, I suppose, the same management team was in place for the Waterford minor panel as was in place for the seniors. So we were kind of naturally grafted onto to being on the senior panel all the way back in 2001. So, and like I've mentioned this before, I probably was joining it at a time just, Waterford were still, I suppose, going relatively strong, I would say, especially in Munster, and getting out of that. We won 2002, we won a senior Munster title, but haven't won one since, so it was just joining, I suppose, just as that era of Waterford football was kind of tapering off a little bit, that circle of players that had existed all throughout the 90s, I suppose we're just at a stage where they were retiring, and went through a real process of building, I suppose, a little bit of a decline and rebuilding since then. And like Lyndsey, it's just been something that's been central to our household, I suppose, and our lives, and
And so is it year on year you decide as well, or like is there stuff that draws you back every year? Or?
The funny thing is, like, looking back on it now, like a lot of my friends when I was in college and stuff obviously would have gone off and done J1s and gone off and done travelling and that, and there was a few of us, so that just never was an option. It was never something we considered even doing, because football just was the number one thing. And I remember even one year when I was in Mary I in my third year off campus, and I was studying French, and I'm a French teacher, so I had to spend the year off campus. I remember even flying home for matches at weekends. It was just the way it was. And up until maybe, I suppose, the end of 2016, I really did consider, whether or not I was going to come back playing in 2017. Started 2017, I remember meeting the manager, Pat Sullivan, and going with an intention to tell him that I wasn't actually going to be playing in 2017. And we had a good chat.
Went well for Pat.
We had a good chat and left the meeting not having given him an answer, actually, and said I'd think about it. And went back about 2 or 3 weeks later, And this time I said, no, you're telling him you're not playing, and I left playing. So, and at that stage, I mean, I'd missed the preseason. I'd missed I'd missed I think 2 games of the league at that stage, and you know, I had a lot of work to catch up on. And you know, 2017, I suppose it ended up being a decent year for Waterford in the sense that Munster Championship we did relatively well, got to a Munster final, and progressed a little bit from there, and have been progressing a little bit ever since, you know. And I suppose at the end of each year since then, I've kind of never made that decision when championship ends. I always think you need to take a bit of time, take a few weeks, maybe a few months, and reassess it then and see whether the hunger is still there, and whether you have even, I suppose, whether it's in the legs, because obviously we've just mentioned, I mean, injuries hurt that a little bit more and recovery takes that little bit longer, but also whether you have, I suppose, the mental strength to just put yourself through that again, because we all know sports gives you the best and sometimes the worst days as well. You know, it's a very emotional thing, and so far so good. Yeah, so far so good. So we'll see where we go from here. Yeah. So look, on that note, maybe we might reflect a little bit on, I suppose, the games of last weekend. Denise, do you want to take over from here?
Will I start with the big one?
We might rip off the band-aid quickly there now, so go first.
Well, obviously, Lyndsey, you were back. You were out with an injury, so you were back for your first match against Waterford last weekend. It was a good day out for Dublin.
Yeah, for me personally, I was delighted just to be back in the fold. I was out for a couple of weeks with an injury, and thankfully I just recovered kind of in the right time to get back for the Waterford game. And you know, it was tough, I suppose, watching the game in the Leinster final against Westmeath, because we were so slow to kind of get going, and that's credit to Westmeath and how they set up. I think they did very well in how they set up against us, but for us, I think obviously we went away from that game knowing that, right, we were very slow to get going, we need to fix that now against Waterford. And I suppose a few players were back. We're missing the likes of Carla and Sinead Ahern, which, you know, is for us who are 2 massive players. But I think the players, you know, like Una White and Niamh Harton, I think they've been playing really well for us. And I think just as a team, collective, even in defence, you know, Ava Rutledge and Aoife Kane have really stood up to the mark the past few games. And just that's definitely an area that we went off after, though, against Waterford, was to get a good start, and thankfully we did, because sometimes it doesn't always go that way. But yeah, look, we just kind of drove it on from there, and kind of thankfully once we kind of got that lead, just trying to keep the scoreboard ticking. But I think definitely was a physical game, probably from both sides, and I know Waterford definitely has had a couple of probably opportunities that he's missed out on that maybe might have been different.
Yeah, I suppose, look, I suppose in the first half we created some scoring opportunities that maybe we didn't take, but I suppose ultimately, looking back, that old adage that goals win games, I mean, we went 2-2 to I think 3 points down within 15 minutes. Dublin scored 4 goals in the first half alone.
I suppose you were at the receiving end of something that Dublin had targeted, in terms of they had a slow start to Westmeath, so it was probably something they wanted to put right. And
true.
You were on the receiving end of it.
Exactly, and I suppose, you know, Dublin just showed the high quality side that they are as well, and even as Lyndsey said, they're missing a number of key players through injury and so on, but it goes to show, I suppose, the standard that exists within their camp and the strength and depth that is in their panel. You know that.
And do you think you would have found out a few things about your own team from the game? Like, did you?
Well, there's been a lot of things learned in the last number of weeks. I mean, you go from playing Kerry to playing Cork twice and then playing Dublin. I mean, you could be getting stiffer tests, like, to be honest. And I suppose some people would say, you know, with the luck, you'd hope to avoid draws like that or matches like that and get as far as you can. But at the end of the day, you do want to be pitting yourself against the top teams. Do you know what I mean? And look, we haven't come off on the right side of it, and we've an awful lot that we know we need to work on. But definitely will have learned lessons. There were 7 games in that 7 goals, in that game. The good start that Dublin got provided the platform for them to continue on within the match. It was a very physically demanding game, to be honest, from start to finish. But look, the thing about it now for us, I suppose, is we don't have too much time to dwell on it, which is nearly a good thing in a way, because we're straight back out now this Saturday against Monaghan in a must-win game for both sides. So last week I suppose one of the things we probably would have been impressed with when it come to Dublin, though, was the speed of their play and their speed of their use of the ball. And as I mentioned there, the kind of relentless physicality that was there, and that relentless pressure that we were put under. And definitely, I suppose, the positives from there, like they would have felt maybe, as Lyndsey said there, that they got a slow start against Westmeath. But, I mean, they rectified that against us definitely last Saturday.
Yeah, and I suppose then to look at the other games from last weekend, were there any standout results that...
Well, I suppose we did actually last week. In fairness, we talked about the Cavan, the possibility of the Cavan beating Armagh, and we said that was definitely one to watch, and it proved us right. And we also highlighted the fact that Cavan, if they were 9 or 10 points down, wouldn't view that as too big a hurdle. And I mean, it proved true. I mean, I think they were 11 points down the second half, came back and won by a point. I mean, 6 goals scored by Armagh, and still to lose the game. That's, I mean, unheard of, really.
Yeah, which goes against the old adage that goals win games, but yeah.
True. Actually, an interesting point about the championship last weekend was there were 70 goals scored in the seniors, intermediate and junior games. I mean, I don't know whether that's a reflection of poor defending or whether it's a reflection of, ruthless attacking, but it's a huge tally of goals for games. It really is, and shows, I suppose, the attacking nature of ladies football, I suppose, maybe compared to other
more open style, maybe.
Absolutely. But definitely Cavan, I suppose, as we said, we predicted. Galway, Kerry and Tyrone Mayo, I suppose, went as predicted as well. Galway, I suppose, got off to a slow start against Kerry.
They had a poor first half performance, I suppose, Galway, but came back in. Yeah,
I think Kerry started off 1-8 to a point up after 10 or 20 minutes, but I didn't see it. Obviously, it was on before our game, but just, I suppose, having read reports and seeing maybe a few interviews, I know Tracy Leonard said that they took them maybe until 10 minutes before half time to kind of settle into the game.
So maybe that will be what they need to get a strong start against Westmeath next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Dublin. With
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that Westmeath Galway game could be very interesting. I mean, Galway have had tough games over the last few weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. They seem to be struggling, and after the performance Westmeath put in against Dublin in the Leinster final, it might be an interesting game, but you'd like to think Galway maybe got the same wake-up call maybe that Dublin got in the first half against Westmeath and Leinster maybe, but
yeah,
would possibly. You do a prediction there?
In the Westmeath Galway, it's a tough one. Like, having been at the Westmeath Dublin game, Westmeath obviously set up very defensively, and if they do the same against Galway, we'll say in the drawn Connacht final, I think Galway struggled when Mayo set up as defensively as that, and it put them under pressure, but they adapted to that in the replay and they showed great composure. And I suppose the direct running of players like Olivia Dively, who I think got player of the match last weekend, had a big impact. So if Galway, I suppose, take those lessons that they learned, you would assume that Galway would probably come through there. And I suppose looking at the intermediate and junior, things pretty much went as predicted from last week with Tipperary. I suppose a convincing win over Meath, 6-10 to 114. Maybe the only surprising thing that we didn't foresee was Wexford maybe beating Clare. But in our defence, we did say it was going to be a very tight game, and we were at a push. We went for Clare. But I suppose looking forward to this weekend, then maybe myself and Lyndsey are going to abstain from the predictions here, Denise. So you're on the spot, if that's okay.
And I'm under pressure now after you were right last week.
So look, we might start with the intermediate fixtures this weekend, because there are no junior fixtures, as people know. So what are your predictions maybe for the Down Limerick game?
Probably going to be a very close game, but I think Limerick.
Okay, very good. And I suppose one of the key matchups in intermediate this weekend will be the likes of Sligo and Kildare, both having had pretty comprehensive wins last week.
Yeah, and again, I think it's going to be another tight game, but I would go with Sligo, maybe. Yeah,
I suppose they do have a lot of experience within their panel over the last number of years. And moving on to Tipperary and Longford.
I mean, Tipperary had a great win last weekend, and I'd be sticking with Tipperary.
I know, and I suppose as predicted last week, I mean, they got a goal straight away from the throw-in. from, Aisling Maloney,
fantastic
the
footballer.
huge impact from the very start. So I suppose Longford will have to be wary of that when they line out against them this weekend. And then moving on to Saturday, Meath versus Wicklow in Ashbourne in Meath.
You would fancy the home side there, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And one of the interesting sides, I suppose, in the intermediate is Laois and Clare. We haven't seen Laois yet. Clare will probably be disappointed not to have gotten the win last week over Wexford, and I suppose do or
They
die
need
game
to
for
win
them.
it. Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah, so you'd fancy Clare in terms of they have to win it, I'd be saying Clare.
Yeah, and actually looking at the Clare team last week, it was interesting to see Eilish Considine was actually back in the Clare side, having been in Australia. So I suppose a bit of match practice last week. Yeah, we'll probably build on it going into this week. And then Offaly Roscommon, I think, is the last intermediate game of the weekend. Who would you fancy there?
Roscommon.
Yeah, would you?
So we'll see now next week.
And then I suppose senior, we've 4 senior games. We might start off with Group 1. Live on TG4 at 3:30 is Cork Cavan. Cork are in their first outing now since the Munster final. Obviously having an injury to Niamh Cotter with a broken hand, but there's probably the possibility of Doireann O'Sullivan maybe returning to the side. So how would you see that one going?
Oh, look, I think Cork are very strong and definite contenders this year as All-Ireland finalists. So I think they're going to be a very strong team this championship. So I'll definitely be going with Cork.
Yeah, although Cavan, to be honest,
yeah,
are in a great position having won last week. They've nothing to lose. Yeah, but
I fancy Cork. Yeah.
And we've already mentioned and touched on, I suppose, the Westmeath Galway match, and that could be a tough one for Galway.
Could be, but you'd like to think that after last weekend that maybe they'll have a stronger start. And I think if they start strong and against Westmeath, they should beat them. But I think Westmeath will be tough opposition, and I don't think it'll be a whitewash either way.
And then I suppose the other game that's live on TG4 at 2:15 on Saturday from Mullingar is Donegal versus Tyrone. So Donegal with a very comprehensive Ulster final victory, and Tyrone ran Mayo close last weekend. Actually, I think we were only beaten by 3 points. So
I think it was a late goal too. But yeah, no, I think I'd fancy the Ulster champions. I think I'd fancy Donegal.
They do seem to be on a bit of I suppose, bit of momentum, a bit of firepower up front as well.
And then the last game, Monaghan Waterford, Michelle, what do you think?
Abstaining from predictions here, Denise.
Yeah, I'll predict, I think Waterford will be good for that one. So
it's a hard one to call now, to be honest, because I suppose both sides, definitely we would have been eyeing up this game since I suppose the draws were made, and interestingly enough, have very little experience playing each other in the last number of years. I think now I'm completely open to correction on this, but the last time I remember playing Monaghan in championship was the 2002 All-Ireland semi-final. That's a long time ago. Yeah,
it's a long time
and
ago.
they beat us by a point.
Going on form.
Well, I suppose, look, that game was significant in the fact that I suppose they put an end to that era that existed between 94 and I suppose 2002 of those epic games between Monaghan and Waterford. So both teams have changed a lot since then, and Monaghan went in 2 very different paths since then, and Monaghan have really been a powerhouse and have contested 3 senior All-Ireland since then. So look, it's going to be a tough battle for either side, and as I said, no one will want to, we wouldn't have had much experience playing against each other in recent years, but it's do or die for both of us, let's be fair. So
I'll predict Waterford and wish you the best of luck, and Lyndsey, you enjoy your rest of the weekend.
Thanks very much. I suppose, look, that wraps up the LGFA Talk Show for this week. Thanks very much for joining us, and many thanks to the guests we've had here today, both here beside me, Lyndsey Davey, current Dublin player, Denise Masterson, 2010 Dublin winning captain and fellow Learn to Lead participant, and also earlier we were joined by Rachael MacKenzie. So thanks very much. See you next week.